Real Madrid Club de Football has lost their second game in a row at the Bernabeu. Last weekend, it was against Celta Vigo in La Liga in a 2-0 defeat, and today it was a 2-1 defeat to Manchester City in the Champions League. Now, I know a lot of people are going to want to blame Xabi Alonso, but personally, I feel bad for Xabi Alonso because I feel like people are saying he's a bad coach and are saying that his system doesn't work. The facts are there, the proof is there. Xabi Alonso won a Bundesliga with a Bayer Leverkusen side that went undefeated all season. That's not an easy thing to do. And I understand that the Bundesliga is not La Liga. I understand that the Bundesliga is not the Premier League, but the Bundesliga still has one of the best teams in the world competing for the title, Bayern Munich. And winning the Bundesliga undefeated is like winning the La Liga with a club like Real Betis. Winning the Bundesliga with Bayer Leverkusen is also like winning the Premier League with a side like Aston Villa or Crystal Palace. Simply just a great accomplishment. I think that Real Madrid have to start looking in the mirror, especially their players, and ask themselves, are we doing enough to complement the system? Are we actually buying into the system? Or are we just going out there and playing backyard football? I think today it also proved how well Xabi Alonso's system works when their players are actually playing to Xabi Alonso's style of football. We know that Xabi Alonso wants to play with high pressure. We know that Xabi Alonso wants his team to be very intense, very aggressive, very relentless, and most of all, he wants his players to work. I think today, the first 20 minutes of the game, Real Madrid were playing Xabi Alonso ball. They were chasing behind the ball. They were constantly pressuring Man City. They were being relentless every time they got the ball, and they were very direct whenever they would win the ball, and they had the clear chances in the first 20 minutes. Even with City holding possession, City was very uncomfortable because of what Real Madrid was doing. They were pressing them, and they didn't give them a single lick of space to create any chances or to look for any through balls in behind the defense. That's credit to Xabi Alonso's system. That's what happens when you actually play Xabi Alonso ball. And I think we've seen Real Madrid play that style of football. And when they play that style of football, they've won games, they've dominated games. And I think today they didn't lose because they played bad. I think today they just had lapses of great football and of very mediocre football. A lot of times I feel like Real Madrid players decide like, okay, we're going to buy into the system, we're going to play like this. But that was the first 20 minutes. And then after that, it was like they went back to backyard football. I think sometimes the Real Madrid players just look at themselves and they're like, you know what? I'm not going to run behind the ball. I'm not going to waste all this energy. We're Real Madrid. We have talented players. Let's just play soccer and see if one of our individual players can win us the game. If you're going to do that, you might as well have kept Carlo Ancelotti, because that was essentially Carlo Ancelotti's Real Madrid. And that's why you didn't win a trophy last season, because you were playing backyard football, hoping that one of your superstars could win you the game. And a lot of time, tactical coaches can beat you, and they will beat you. And you need to play to a system. You need to play some tactics, or else this is what happens. Now, I don't want to say that Man City completely ran over Real Madrid, because they didn't. Real Madrid actually opened up the scoring with a great goal from Rodrigo. He took it confidently, and it didn't even look like he was breaking a 30-plus game goal drought. It was just that clinical that it didn't look like he hadn't scored in so many games. And I think that just speaks to the level of player that Rodrigo is. And I think today Rodrigo had a great game. I think he had a lot of space to work with. I think he won most of his one-on-one duels, and he had a good game. Now, unfortunately, Real Madrid, like I said, had those lapses, and in those lapses, City were able to start getting a little more confident, start being a little more comfortable on the pitch, and they were also creating their own chances. And today, Real Madrid didn't lose because they had a bad game, and they didn't lose because City was the better team. Now, I do want to remind the people that this isn't the City that won the treble. This isn't the City that dominated English football for 10 plus years. This is the new City, and I think this is probably one of the worst cities we've seen in the past decade. But they still have a lot of great firepower, and they still have a lot of great stars, and you cannot make mistakes against them. And today Real Madrid lost because they made individual mistakes. I'm not going to blame Courtois, because Courtois has saved Real Madrid countless times, but today he did make a mistake. I'm not sure what happened on that header, why he didn't grab it, or why he wasn't able to contain the ball, but he spilled it, and O'Reilly was just in the right place at the right time, scoring his first goal in the Champions League. And in the second goal, Rudiger is just a reckless defender. Rudiger's a great defender, but he's reckless. He's a bit immature. He's a bit of an unserious player, in my opinion. I personally don't like Rudiger. If I was Real Madrid, I wouldn't start Rudiger. Now, I understand that Real Madrid have a lot of injuries, at the center back role. No Militao, no Dean Housen, who for me are the two best defenders that they have. But Rudiger, you just can't commit that penalty there. You have to be smarter. You can't be too aggressive. And it's just reckless. And I mean, Haaland is not missing that penalty. And City were up 2-1 after a pretty good half for Real Madrid, in my opinion. Now, something that I do want to point out about Xabi Alonso's system is that I think Real Madrid have a Kylian Mbappe problem. Now, let me explain why, because people are going to say, dude, you're dumb. How does Real Madrid have a Kylian Mbappe problem when he's the best player on the pitch, when he's the best player in the world, when he's the top scorer in La Liga, when he's scored most of the goals for Real Madrid? That's precisely why. The starting 11 that started for Real Madrid today had a collective of 1 goal in the Champions League today. The rest were scored by Mbappe. It just seems like Real Madrid is dependent on Mbappe, and we've seen it in La Liga too. Whenever Mbappe is not on the pitch, Real Madrid struggle to score. Also, Kylian Mbappe being the guy he is, being the best player in the world, of course, he is so talented that he is constantly asking for the ball. There's nothing wrong with that. However, he is not a natural number 9, and he drifts away from that number 9 position. What happens then is that he goes in deep trying to get the ball, and he starts crowding the midfield where Bellingham plays or where Güler plays. He sometimes drifts to the left, he sometimes drifts to the right, and he starts crowding his wingers. Now we know that Real Madrid's strengths lie in the wings because they have players like Rodrigo or Vinicius. And today, personally, I thought that Bellingham was the best player on the pitch. He was the best player for Real Madrid. Today, Bellingham was an absolute dog and a workhorse. I just think that he was more free to do what he wanted to do. He didn't have Güler there burdening him in the same spot that he always plays. I think that Güler and Bellingham can't play together. At least they haven't been able to play together. When they both play, one of the two has a good game and the other one just doesn't stand out. They play two similar of roles that they just can't play together. And a lot of time Mbappe will go deep into the midfield, try to get the ball, and I think that also takes away from Bellingham's creativity and from his ability to maintain the ball and hold possession and create chances for Real Madrid. Another thing is, with Gonzalo Garcia playing as a natural number 9, being that he is a natural number 9, I thought that offensively the players understood themselves better. I saw a more cohesive attack. I saw them actually triangulate passes. I saw them actually win their one-on-ones because they actually had space to work with on the wings, like Vinicius Jr. and Rodrigo. Today, the offensive players understood themselves better because there was no Mbappe, there was no pressure to get him the ball, and there was no Mbappe to crowd their space, and they were able to freely do what they need to do and play the way that they should be playing. That's the Kylian Mbappe problem for Real Madrid. Dependency on him to score all these goals, and then when he's on the pitch, he tends to break the system a little bit because he crowds the offensive third too much for his other teammates. I want to talk a little bit about Vinicius before we end the video. Vinicius Jr., if you're going to cry, if you're going to whine when you get subbed off, if you're going to threaten, or at least if you're going to have this rumor flying around that you're threatening not to re-sign if Xabi Alonso stays, if you're going to have a bad relationship with Xabi Alonso, if you want to be the guy, essentially, you got to show it on the pitch. Today was a perfect game for you to show that you're still the guy. I understand that you won multiple Champions League with Real Madrid already being the guy, but now you have Kylian Mbappe there who is a better player. But if you still want to be the guy, you have to show it. You have to prove it. And today you didn't prove it. You had 2 chances in front of goal that you should have put in the back of the net. They were both game-tying opportunities, and you just didn't take them. That can't happen with a player that acts the way you do. That can't happen with a player that wants all the money that you're asking for. You have to be the guy when your team needs you. And today, your team needed you. Today, you weren't even the best player on the pitch. Rodrigo had a better game than you, and Bellingham had a better game than you. Outside of that, I thought Real Madrid had a alright game. Like I said, it was a game of lapses. It was a game of the first 20 minutes Real Madrid played well, or at least the first 30 minutes. The first half was pretty good. I know they went down 2-1, but I thought the Real Madrid had the better chances and that they played better. City were just very clinical. In the second half, City just sat back, and Real Madrid went back, at least in the last 20 minutes of the game. They went back to Xabi Alonso ball. They were relentless with their attack. They were constantly dropping back on the counter attacks. They were trying to close up as much space as they could, and they were looking for that game-tying goal. And I think that speaks a lot about the players and the coach's relationship as well. A lot of people could think that the players do want Xabi Alonso out, but if they wanted him out, then we wouldn't have seen the performance we saw in the second half of Real Madrid, where they were actually trying, they were busting their ass to try to get that game tying goal. I think that's because they actually respect the coach and they don't want any more pressure on themselves and on the coach. Nonetheless, Real Madrid lose another game at the Bernabeu. They've won 2 out of the last 8. They are not in great form. I think they are missing a lot of players because of injuries. In the weekend, they'll have a lot of players missing because of injury and suspension. So we'll see how they fare against Getafe. But today, I think Real Madrid looked all right. They didn't look lost. They actually played collectively pretty well. It was just individual mistakes that plagued their game, and they essentially just couldn't break down Man City's mid block after that. Let me know in the comments below what you guys thought about the game. Let me know in the comments below what you guys thought about Real Madrid. Is it actually Xabi Alonso's fault, or can you blame the players as well? I personally am on Xabi Alonso's side. I think that the players have to do a better job at implementing his system. But yeah, don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.